Hello everyone, this is John from the Operations family. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to join our community, feel free to visit our website operations.family and apply. We'd love to have you on board. The interview was organized by Palette, a SaaS platform that simplifies and automates sales commissions. If calculating sales commissions is taking too much of your time, or if you'd like to improve the process, Palette is directly synchronized with your CRM and other data sources to crunch the numbers automatically and calculate commission payouts. Visit palettehq.com for more information. And now, without further ado, let's hear Gachet, Chief Strategy Officer at Algolia, discuss about pricing strategies.
Cool. So, hello, Gaetan. It's a real pleasure to have you today. Quick introduction, Gaetan. First business hire at Algolia, second employee. You joined Algolia right before YC. I think it was in late 2013.
Right.
7 full years at Algolia. You closed the first $1 million of ARR.
Mm-hmm.
You became VP Sales, VP Revenue. You built the sales team basically from 0 to over 100 people. And you're now the Chief Strategy Officer at Algolia. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a real privilege to have you.
Thank you, Jean-Hébert.
Do you want to really quickly introduce Algolia, what you do, how big is this team?
Sure. So what does Algolia do? So Algolia, it's a set of APIs to allow developers and product owners to create dynamic content experiences. And those APIs allow you to implement a search engine, intent detection, and recommendation.
Okay, so you make things easy to find on the internet and on websites.
100%, that's what we do.
Cool. How big is the team right now and how big is the sales team?
So globally, we're over 300, I think 360 people. And in sales, we have about 50 AEs. If you include the support functions, probably around 150 or 200.
Okay, well, pretty big team, pretty
Right.
big.
Yep.
So the topic of today is about pricing, and especially how do you design a new pricing plan? Why should you change the pricing? How do you do it? And the first question is it okay to change pricing? Because we see a lot of companies that don't want to change their pricing. They're kind of afraid of the impact it could have on the whole team, but also on the revenue.
Yep.
My first question is, how many times did Algolia update or change the pricing over the last 3 to 4 years? Is it V1 or V10?
No, I think we have the world record on this one. So right now we are at our 8th version of our pricing model.
Okay,
right.
Cool. So you are the example that it's okay to change the pricing. Every time, did you have negative feedback? Did you piss customers off? Did you see a negative impact on the revenue?
So you do, yeah, of course you especially when, so what's specific to Algolia is that we sell to a lot of different industries and different use cases. So it's always, what's always tricky is to find the pricing model that is, finds a common denominator across all of this, but you can't make everybody happy. So you have to have a pricing model that makes most people happy, but you can never reach that. So of course there's always, people that you make unhappy.
Yeah, it's true that. So what's really interesting about Algolia is that I think the price of Algolia starts at maybe $20 or $30 per month.
Oh no, now it's much lower.
It's much more. Okay.
Much lower.
Lower. Okay.
Yeah.
Lower.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But you also sell to large enterprise companies, so it's really interesting to see how you address. You have like a bottom-up motion, but also a top-down motion selling to mid-market enterprise companies. Yeah. I think that Nicolas Desseine, last year, 2 years before, wrote an article about a new pricing plan. And he mentioned that you implemented grandfathering. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So right now, we still have customers on our, I think, first or second version of our pricing model. So yeah, so we grandfather our customers on the pricing that they signed up on. And the idea is over time, as you add features to your product, you migrate those older customers to your new pricing versions. So that's the trick here, is to, and that's where it can be complicated, is to maintain different versions of your product for each version of your pricing model.
Okay.
That's how we do that.
Okay, so you do not necessarily grant new features to everybody if the prices are different.
It depends if it's if it's features that are must have in the industry and they're commodity type of features, then you give access to them to all your customer base. For features that really make your product differentiated, you want to reserve them to your latest customers in your latest pricing versions. For instance, we've just released a whole set of AI features. Those ones are just available to our, call that V8 actually internally, our last version of pricing. The customers who are on that version of the pricing, they're the only ones who have access to
Okay.
to our AI models.
Okay, cool. What are the do's and don'ts when you update the pricing? Do you have like a list?
Do is grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's this famous story of Zendesk who abruptly, I think, migrated all customers to their new pricing. It backfired crazy apparently. What else? So talk to your customers. Really try to understand what they see, what value they see in your product, because ultimately you want your pricing to align with your value.
Okay.
You want a pricing that also makes it easy for sales reps to scope the deal, because if you price on a metric that is hard to assess or to evaluate, it makes the sales process difficult. And also make it difficult for the customer, because if the customer does not understand, cannot really connect the value they get from the product with the price they pay, it is difficult. Some things, other do's and don'ts, let me think. Then you need to, as for instance, the latest iteration of our pricing, we did it to best align with our go-to-market motion.
Okay.
Our go-to-market, because we're an API, we tend to rely a lot on technical champions internally, and our motion is very bottom up in our accounts. So we have a self-serve motion where you have developers who come to our platform, they sign up, they test the product on their own, and then we have the sales team whose job is to really help those developers. Once convinced by the product, they help those developers convince the rest of the decision committee. So the business personas, the VPs, all of that. So the thing is, you need a pricing model that lowers barrier to testing your product. So pretty much the idea is a developer should be able to test all of your product by just swiping a credit card and expensing it. So that's the idea. The previous version of our pricing model was, I want to call it full top down. So we gated features, so we only made them available if you talk to a rep, and it's somewhat made it difficult for our field and our go-to-market motion here. So that's why we changed it.
That's super interesting. It tells a lot about the Algolia culture as well, because if I understand correctly, you revamped the whole pricing for your community, for developers, yep. For people who want to try out Algolia and see how it looks, see how it works. Yep. So you're designing what you are building is for the community of developers and not necessarily to big enterprise, and that's why you didn't want the features to be gated.
Right. Exactly.
That's super cool, and that's a great segue actually to my next question, which is why should a company change the pricing? I've recently read about a behavior model from a psychologist at Stanford, and basically, if you want to change behavior, you have to combine three things: motivation, the ability to change, and the trigger. And so I was wondering, okay, what motivates a company to change your pricing? You kind of
Yeah.
answered that already.
So for us, maybe I can add to this. So more specifically, so over the years we've over-indexed our pricing model to target just one industry and one type of customers. So enterprise customers in e-commerce retail. So, and by doing that, so that's when we started to gate features and have more of an enterprise full top-down motion. But we've realized, one day we sat down and realized, okay, is our product only an e-com product, or can we sell to other industries? And actually the reality is that we have a potential across all industries, all use cases, because what we do is we streamline the distribution of content, of online content. So we have customers in the media space, we have customers in banks, we have customers in, in healthcare. And by having that e-com full approach, we almost prevented ourselves from, from growing in those other potential industries. And the other thing is you cannot go after every industry at once. So you kind of also want to have that sort of a viral approach. You want to allow the most people possible to test your product without having a rep involved. So that's why the idea was to really lower as much as possible the barrier to testing our product, make it as self-service as possible, so that we could get an organic inbound on our product from maybe industries or accounts that we would have never thought about going after. And that's pretty much what we had in the very early days of Algolia, and that's what we're rebuilding right now. So understanding what's your vision, what's your TAM, and how do you go after that total addressable market. And our TAM is quite gigantic, so we can't do it all on our own. So again, we had to rely on champions and heroes in the field, and you can't charge your heroes. You have to give it to them. You have to give your tool to your hero so that they can test it and then build a case for your product internally. So that was the psychology that went behind our product.
Interesting that you kind of came back to the early days of the pricing after iterating. You actually came back to the first version of the Algolia pricing.
Yep.
And okay, so and what was the trigger? Once you understand that, what's the right moment to kick off a new pricing? What's the trigger?
So a few things. So there's always the motion of every year you change your pricing. It allows you to upsell people. So you kind of create a reason for people to migrate. So that's that's one, but that's not the core one, the main one. Really for us, the main one is we felt that something was off. We knew it. Our win rate started to go down. Our top of the funnel started to slow down. Like, okay, there's something weird happening. And again, those were the triggers. And that's when you start looking at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what are we doing right now? Who are we going after? Who's our competition? How do we differentiate ourselves? And for us, the main differentiator is our API positioning. Is what we offer is a microservice that you can integrate inside your application, your website, your mobile app. And our champions are developers and technical folks. And we had for us, we just connected the dots and realized, okay, we have to serve this population again. Those were our champions. We have to have a pricing model that best aligns with this, and that's best aligned with the motion that has proven to be successful, and the motion that that is the most successful for our type of product. So you just look at your funnel and your performance, your growth, and it can be a trigger here.
Okay, cool. Nice framework. Like, look at the top of the funnel, know who you are, know what's your culture, know who are the heroes, and how you can best serve them.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. If we talk about designing a plan, maybe the first question is, who do you put together in a room to design a new plan? Who are the teams that should be involved?
So for us, it was led by business operations.
Okay.
So business operations, it's like our own internal consulting team, and they're the ones who are producing the recommendation. So ultimately, to step back, it was pushed by our CTO, like the idea, the seed, and then led by our business operations team, BizOps. Then they put around the table all the different functions that will be impacted by this pricing. So obviously, there's sales leadership. There is so sales and not all functions are involved at the beginning, but there's sales leadership, there's customer success as well, because you want to make sure one thing that we don't talk about enough is, sure, you can close the deal, but then is the amount that people pay actually aligned with the value that they get out of the product? Because if your pricing is off, then you'll see your churn and contraction just skyrocket. So customer success is very important to have also as part of this discussion. Sales enablement because you got to make sure that your pricing is easy for the field to pitch and position and scope. Who else? So you have product marketing as well, because you want to make sure that the features that you put behind the different plans are also well aligned with the with the value that people extract. But the core function is, I think for us, it was business. It was BizOps, business operations.
Okay. Do you also talk to, I don't know, engineers, developers, the infrastructure to make sure that it's feasible?
Yes, because there was an underlying impact in the way we were redesigning our pricing on the infrastructure, because we used to sell clusters and like individual set of servers. Now this layer is invisible for the customer. Okay. So what people buy right now is just usage of the API. So pretty much number of API calls and storage of records. But what happens now under the hood, the number of machines that you're on, all that stuff just disappeared. So we had to make sure that from an infrastructure standpoint, our pricing was feasible.
Okay. So that's actually quite critical, because what you say is that right now the pricing is 100% variable. There's no fixed price.
Right.
That's a big deal actually, because can you keep predictability with a model like this?
So answer is yes, because once you have volume, things start to become predictable. You can forecast them. But the thing is that there's this motion more and more where, from a pricing standpoint, you used to sell large licenses, then used to sell a seat-based model, and now it's literally down to the actual atomic usage of your service.
Okay. More
and more people want to pay for exactly what they get out of your product. So we're also part of that trend. Twilio, Stripe, New Relic, all these guys, they're also going with this motion. So again, it's a pricing model that is 100% aligned with the benefit of the customer. So we're taking the risk of as you go type of model. But that's the trend in the industry right now. It's the risk that should not be on the customer, it should be on us. Because ultimately our promise is, if we do deliver value, you will end up using more of our product.
But that doesn't it scare customers when the price, you never know if it could slide upwards. And sometimes, like customers, they want, of course, value alignment, but they also want scalability and predictability. They want to make sure that they won't go over a certain budget over the year. How do you deal with that?
So during it's different conversations when you land a customer and when you expand, when you renew the customer. Okay. So when you land the customer, it all comes down to scoping their need. So some customers can start with pure pay as you go. Literally every month they get a new bill based on what their usage. Then you can take those customers, talk to those customers, and with them forecast their usage over the next, 6 months, 12 months, and then you give them a discount for them to commit. But the thing, because they have a history already with your product, they're more comfortable committing on a certain usage. And with the folks that you actually lend directly on, on usage, you can have the same approach where, you scope the potential need. And then to mitigate for the risk, you can always give them, a buffer. Like you tell them, okay, we include, if you guys go 20% extra, it's on us. And if you don't need as much as what we sold you, we're just giving you a discount right now. So it's a plus or minus 10%, 20% that you give them. There's several approaches to that. Or even if they end up going over just for a certain period of time, you give them, you're okay with this, or then you have like true up logic as well at the end of the period. But again, the idea is really to make sure that you don't oversell them, because when comes the renewal, it will be a guaranteed contraction. That's also the beauty of this model, is you're going to make sure that you sell exactly what they need and not more.
Okay. Yes, again, a lot of things here. The buffer, being sure that you don't oversell, but also the impact it can have on the sales team, because if you want the sales team to be able to scope efficiently and communicate confidence to the customers. So you need to have account executives, solutions engineers that know how to scope efficiently.
And you can even have like control mechanisms in the way you commission your reps on a usage-based pricing, because you can also, there's always a risk that a rep could oversell, right? Sell too much. The way to mitigate that risk for the customer is you only pay the rep based on how much of the product the customer has actually used.
Okay.
Which is pretty hardcore. But that, again, that's the idea, because if you have sold too much, then it's contraction when comes the renewal. So, and nobody wants contraction. So everybody needs to have skin in the game, including the account executive who sold the deal initially.
I can see how it impacts the compensation plan as well, but that's maybe a topic for another discussion. Right. I saw that Algolia has a free plan. What do you put in the free plan? Do you put all the features? How does it compare to to a free trial?
So in free plan, you're limited in the usage. So that's the idea, is you want people to be able to use as much as possible of your product from a feature set standpoint. The idea is here, our target here is the individual developer who would be working at a large company or even a medium-sized company on the side project, or for them to build a prototype. The thing is, you don't want them to go live for free in a way, especially when they work on a large account, but you want them to be able to play with the product. So the cap that you put is mostly on usage, not on the features.
Yeah, I see sometimes feature gates that are kind of weird, like you won't have SSO. You won't have security.
So the thing is, so there are constraints to going live with a product, especially when you work in a large company, like you're right, like not SSO necessarily, but like audit log and things that are very enterprisey type of things. So those are the kind of gates that you put around your free tier. You really want the free plan to be either for very, very small users, but those guys, they won't care anyway about audit log. Or for users inside large companies, you want them to be able to experience as much as possible of the product while not necessarily being able to go full live with it.
Okay. But well, except for these like the really enterprise features that only maybe 5% customers want, basically someone on the free tier or paying $20 will have almost the same features as someone paying 10,000, which is kind of
for sure. But the main difference here is the usage, again, because you go with the usage-based model, because you're a large company, you're going to use more, you get more value, and that's why you pay more.
Yeah,
Nothing.
it's still like, okay, I only need to drive 5 miles a day, but I'm still getting the Ferrari, even though I'm paying $10
Yeah.
for the Ferrari.
Yes, but the thing is, you know, there's many benefits to opening the set of features. One of them, for instance, you know, you never know. Like an engineer is working at a small company today, but you know, the day they switch job, they take their toolbox with them, and they tech you. So if they are convinced that your product is really good, you know, when they join a larger organization, they're going to recommend you. So again, there's nothing really negative. You know, you gate features because of fear, but you need to realize, at least us, and I'm speaking mostly for us, like the tremendous opportunity of just opening access to the world. You're literally broaden the top of your funnel by doing that. And
do you track that? Are you able to say these customers or this amount of pipeline were created by people who initially used Algolia on a side project? Do you track that? Do you have a number in mind?
no, we don't track this, and I don't know how we could do that. We don't track it today, right?
Okay, so it's really also about the culture of Algolia. It's not numbers driven; it's culture driven. Yeah.
Yes,
We want our community, our heroes, to have the tools for free.
it's exactly that. It's exactly that.
Okay, cool. Do you work with consulting firms to change the pricing to
Pricing? Yes, so we work. Yeah, so we did some work a couple of years back with a pretty large consulting firm. There are a few, like one of them, Simon Kutcher, is pretty well known in the space. The thing though is there are some things that it cannot help you with. Like the identity of your company has to be clear. Your go-to-market motion also has to be clear. They can help you with interviews and benchmarks and this type of things, but there are some things that they can't do, that they cannot do for you.
Okay. And when choosing a consulting firm, what do you need to make sure of before?
For us is have they worked with similar companies in the past? Like for us, you know, API economy is a big thing. For instance, you know, the folks that we would compare ourselves with are Twilio, Segment, you know, these guys who have done work with this type of companies, because if they have, it means that they already understand the motion of those companies. They understand, you know, like, you know, the impact of going usage based on our gross margin, for instance. Like there's a lot of things like that under the hood that they do understand. So that would be the one thing that I would recommend. And talk to the customers that help.
Okay. Cool. Maybe last questions about how the pricing strategy relates to the compensation plan.
Mm-hmm.
When you change the pricing, do you need to change the compensation plan of the sales team or CSM?
So we didn't change it necessarily. No, there's one thing that we changed though. I don't think it was 100% linked to pricing changes, but right now we comp our AEs on committed deals. So which means, and for us, committed is a period of 12 months or longer. If an account that you work on ends up transacting with a pay-as-you-go model where, you know, they're not committed, then you don't get comped on this one. There's a question mark here on should we comp or not. It all ties to how your CFO wants to report on numbers. You know, is the committed ARR the number one metric that is super important, or do you actually want to grow your pay as you go base? Because then the sort of the priorities of the company define the motions and define the comp plans. The comp plans are, you know, it's a way to drive behaviors. So if your company absolutely wants to increase committed revenue, then you're gonna over-index on committed revenue in your comp plans. So right now for us, it's more committed driven in the way we comp our field. We can always change, if you want to massively grow our pay-as-you-go account base, then we can decide to start comping on that.
And were the AEs happy about this plan, this method?
Well, it didn't change that much compared to historically. Where it changed the most, it was for our SMB team, because our SMB team used to be paid on the plans that were month-to-month plans, and we've changed that. Ultimately, it didn't impact them that much because they're still crushing their numbers. So it all, whenever you change comp plans or whenever you change things for the field, they're never happy, because it's super stressful to go from something that that seems to be stable to something you don't know. So there's always, you always need to sell it to them. They always need to get something in return. It's a give and get. So I don't remember exactly what we gave them, but we did give them something. But then, a quarter in, you reassess. You can always change, a model. You always, you tell the field, if it doesn't work, we'll roll back or we'll find another mechanism. But yeah, that's how we approached it with them.
So let the team know that the management is really looking at the numbers and ready to change if something.
Yeah, because the thing is, you want your reps to stay. The worst, the horrible thing that can happen is your field doesn't hit their number and they leave. And if you have a high attrition, in your sales team, it's really, really hard. So you absolutely want to keep your people. You want to make sure that they do hit their number.
Yeah. What I like about this approach of compensating committed amounts is that it forces reps to really build up the value that Algolia can bring to the customers, and really making sure that it's a long-term relationship, and they can feel confident with Algolia. And also it reminds me of the importance of scoping. Committed on when you're compensated on a committed number, you want to make sure that you get scoping right, which is really crucial for this motion. Doesn't it? Does it impact land and expand strategies? If you for mid-market and enterprise customers, one way of of closing them would be to close them on a really small deal, and then expand as they discover the tool, as you map the company, map the structure, the organization.
Yep.
Did you see an impact on the...
So yes, actually, yes. So the thing is, our previous pricing model was very feature oriented. So, which means that, for instance, our highest tier was the enterprise plan. And if you wanted to have access to personalization, you had to be on this plan. The issue that we had with it is, because it was a larger price tag, you had baked and bundled with this in this plan, you had a lot of usage. The challenge is we closed and we landed accounts for the need of the features, but they ended up with a very large usage. So we somewhat killed our expansion opportunities there, because it would just take them so long to reach the usage limit of their plan. Now, when you go with a usage-based model, you flip things, and now literally everything is driven by whether or not people use your product. So even in your product roadmap, you have to think about features that will drive usage. Your solutions team has to think about creative ways to leverage the product. For instance, we have a lot of customers who use us just in the search box. So now we have to promote ways to use Algolia in other areas of your front end. You can build content carousel with Algolia. You can, leverage Algolia in navigation. You can have personalized navigation and all those things. So it forces us as well to make sure that people get the most value out of the product, because value is extracted when they use the product. So it did end up changing a lot of things, and it changes our expansion motion as well.
The thing that I love about this topic is that now you were talking about the product team and how it is really critical to the success of a good pricing plan. And what I love about that is when you think about the like revamping the pricing, it actually leads to a number of really cool questions like, who are my heroes? Who am I? What are the values of the company? What's the customer feedback? What's the value that I'm bringing to the table? Is my product good enough? So it really has like a tremendous impact on the whole organization. Every single team is impacted by the pricing.
100%.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think we're running out of time, but I have, let's do the famous 5. Current book you're reading, or favorite business book, or favorite.
So the one I'm reading right now is Ask Your Developer. It was written by Jeff Lawson, the CEO of Twilio, and it's amazing. It's really, really cool. So for anyone who wants to understand the bottoms-up approach, that's the book. I haven't finished it yet, but it's really, 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 really interesting.
Okay, and I know you read like 2 or 3 books every week, so if you're recommending this one, I'll definitely put it on my to-do list. An executive leader one should follow or study.
So Lawson, I think, is super interesting. Who else? There's so many. Ray Dalio is interesting to me as well. It's not in the tech space, but his book Principles is super interesting, I think. There's so many.
Cool. I love Ray Dalio and the books. It's really insightful. What do you do to relax? Favorite Twitter account, Reddit account, or any activity you do to relax?
What I do to relax, honestly, it's gonna sound boring. I read this type of books. No, but it's super interesting and it's super interesting to read from people who've done it before, because it makes you feel better about your day to day. Because like honestly, it's hard, every day is freaking hard. Like I answer your questions and it feels like it's easy, we figured it out. Absolutely not. It's so hard. So I feel like reading from these people, it feels like you have a conversation with a big brother who's telling you, no worries, okay, everything's gonna be fine. So for me, it's always good, and plus it gives you new perspectives on things. So I do that.
Yeah, people don't necessarily realize how brutal hypergrowth is, and it's always good to.
It's awful.
Favorite online tool?
So the one I use the most, so Evernote for sure. Einstein, I love it. What else? Yeah, I would say those 2 are the ones where I spend the most time.
Okay, cool. And who should I interview next?
At Algolia?
Up to you.
Outside.
Algolia is fine. Who should I interview at Algolia?
I think we could go with Jesus. So Jesus is our new VP of growth. He comes from Unity. Super interesting. And at Unity, they have mastered this bottoms-up model. So super, super cool. Right now, I learned a ton from him right now. So I probably go talk to him.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. Gaetan, this is really gold. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And well, have a nice day.
Thank you, Jonathan. You too.
Good luck with the quarter, with everything. And Godspeed, Algolia.
All right, bye.
Cheers.
Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. We'd love to hear your feedback, so feel free to send us a message or ping us directly in the comments. And if you'd like to join our community, feel free to visit our website operations.family. Cheers!